Airtable also has a form view that we use very often with clients. This is great when you need to add data consistently. Lots of clients struggle with data consistency and data integrity. So by asking all of your employees to enter a form, you're making sure that all of your mandatory fields are filled in. If it's a phone number, it's in the right format. If it's a URL, it's in the right format. And it's just a lot easier on the eye when someone goes to review that data or when another team needs to use the data later on. I highly recommend using form views for the original data entry whenever possible. You can customize these forms views as well. You can add images and logos for your different forms to make them a little more visual. You can add in all sorts of different field types inside of your form. You can also hide or show the fields that you need or don't need. I've just brought on the project status column. And I'm going to move %complete down to the bottom a little bit. %complete is not always a field that you'll know right up front. However, if a project has already started and it's already underway, then this field might be relevant. So you can actually create a conditional field. When setting up the conditional field, you can make it show based on the answers to a previous question. Now, when I open up the form, the %complete field is not going to be there immediately. Only when I select the project status as in progress, then the %complete will show. You can also make certain fields in your form mandatory. By turning on the required toggle, you're forcing someone to enter data before submitting the form. This is great if your team has a lot of data to enter. Some of it is mandatory, some of it isn't. So you want to make sure you're helping your team enter all the correct data so they don't miss a field. Inside of Airtable, you can also pre-fill your forms. I love pre-filling forms for both our processes internally and for our clients because it allows people to enter fewer pieces of data, and that almost always means fewer mistakes. It's not that I don't trust others to enter data. I just know people are human and we all make mistakes, including myself. I would also not trust myself to enter data, so it's only fair. Last time when we were talking about button fields, we created a button called Add a Project. You can see the way this is set up is that there's a form URL inside of this button field. Now we can actually change the form URL slightly to make it dynamic towards each record. One of the things I want to help you understand is how to actually pre-fill a form field. There's a support article on this, and you can definitely Google it to understand the concept. First, we'll show you how this concept works, and then I'll show you a shortcut to doing it. The first step is to figure out what the URL is in your form. You will get the form URL by going to the form view and clicking on Share View. This is the URL of your form. You also want to identify which columns you want to prefill. Since I'm going to be adding a project from the client table, a natural place for me to want to prefill is the name of the client. The first thing I need to do is add a question mark after the URL, and then put in prefill underscore the field name that I want to prefill. So here in my formula, I've got question mark, prefill underscore client. And then I'm going to put in an equal sign. The equal sign needs to be within the quotation. Then I'm going to add in an ampersand. Lastly, I'll include the name of the client. When I click on this right now, it's not actually going to work. Now that I've saved my prefill form field, I can open it and see that my client is prefilled. You can see this information here. Sometimes it's not as obvious, and you might need to use the encode URL component to make sure that your data prefills properly. It's a good idea to add in the encode URL component and wrap it around the field you're trying to prefill, because that's going to allow your data to display correctly in the URL. Once again, the prefilled field is working. When you're prefilling one or two fields, I think it's very easy to go through the formula, follow the Airtable documentation, and go through step by step creating those one or two fields. Sometimes, however, we'll have forms where 5, 10, or 20 fields need to get prefilled. In those cases, it's quite cumbersome to write the formula. So I'm going to show you an extension to make this a little easier. You'll open up the extension section to the right side of your Airtable. Then click on Add an Extension. In the search bar, you can type in Prefilled Forms. We want to also give credit where it's due. This extension was made by Kuban, who is a very active member of the Airtable community. Once you install the extension, you can fill in the relevant fields on the prompt. You will pick the table that contains the form you want to prefill. In this case, it's our projects table. You will also pick the form view. The extension also asks for the URL of the form. This time we're only grabbing the root extension. You will also pick the table that will contain the formula. In this case, this is our clients table. After clicking Next, you'll see all the fields on your form. And you can select how you want to pre-fill these fields. For the client field, I will want to pre-fill with a field value. I'll want to pre-fill it with the client name. For the project status, I want to default the status to new. If you select static text, you want to make sure you fill in the keyword or the sentence that's precisely what you want to fill in. In my case, the static text is a status, which is a single select field. So I'll want to make sure my keyword here, which is new, precisely matches what's in my selection dropdown. So I'll double check it. It's new without any spaces. And I'll want to match the lower and uppercase precisely the same as well. Next, extension generates a formula by itself, which you can copy. Now you can replace the formula that we built earlier for our button. And once I click on the button field, I'll see the client is filled in automatically, and so is the project status. You can pre-fill as many fields as you want, and I highly encourage you to pre-fill as many as you can to make sure the data integrity is great inside of your base. The final concept we want to talk about in a pre-filled field is the ability to hide a field inside of a form. Sometimes you're going to have fields that are static. For example, every single project that comes in is going to be a new project. It's a field that gets pre-filled every single time, but you also don't want to show it to your team every single time because it's just extraneous information. Airtable breaks this down fairly clearly. You have a purple section called Hide the Field and the orange section, which is the field name itself. We can also make an update in our Add a Project form. First, I'm going to type in an ampersand. And then a quote, another ampersand. And then I'm going to type in hide underscore. Next, it's the field name. Then I'll type in true, which means hide this field, which is true. Now when I click on the form, the client name is still pre-filled, but the status is missing. It's still in the form, but it's just hidden. So I'll add a new project called Test Project from Today. I don't have to fill in the client because that's already pre-filled. And I will fill in the budget. I've submitted that form, so I've created a new project. Now you can see that there's a new project for test projects from today. The estimated budget is $3,500. And most importantly, the project status wasn't filled in by anybody, but it was pre-filled and hidden from the form. So when that form got submitted, that status still came in as part of creating the record. Thanks for investing in your own knowledge base. I'm Cherry Yang, the founder of Claribase. We're going to be releasing our flagship course, Airtable Mastery, for free. In the course, you can find over 100 videos on topics like design, integration, automations, and interfaces. It's perfect for the Airtable champion who wants to build their database right the first time. You can sign up for the course at the link down below.